Welcome to Breast Intentions, the podcast where we take off the bra of expectations and dive into honest, empowering conversations. We're your hosts, Nadine and Cynthia, two Canadian girls who swapped snow boots for flip-flops in the Cayman Islands. This is your space to feel seen, supported, and a little less alone. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of champagne and get ready for your weekly handful of truth, wellness, and empowerment. Welcome back to Breast Intentions. Today's guest is a true force. Diagnosed with hormone-positive breast cancer in 2005, she turned her pain into purpose. From early menopause to powerful self-advocacy, she navigated it all with strength and grace. Owner of Energy Pilates here in the Cayman Islands and the founder of Pilates for Pink, Colleen Brummer is redefining survivorship through movement, community, and purpose.
So today's episode, we have Colleen Brummer, who is the owner of Energy Pilates down here in the Cayman Islands, and also the founder of Pilates for Pink.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a little bit of info on how you ended up in the Cayman Islands?
Well, I was an elementary school teacher in Canada. So I've always been in the teaching business, and I had just graduated from university graduation. And they weren't hiring in Canada at the time, hiring freeze like they sometimes do. And a friend of mine said, would you think about moving to the Cayman Islands for a little bit? And I said, where is that? And it just kind of snowballed from this little idea to something that involved us moving. I think the movie Cocktail was really big at the time. It seemed very exciting to be moving to the Caribbean. I don't know. There was a lot kind of involved in that. It just seemed like it'd be something fun to do because there was no full-time work at the time. That was in 1997. And so, fast forward a few years, they wouldn't hire me in Cayman as a teacher, actually. They said I didn't have enough experience, which is strange because I graduated from one of the top universities in Canada. But at the time, it was all for the best. And so I started doing in Cayman what I had always done all the way through university: personal training, aerobics classes back in the day, high-low impact step classes, the whole thing. And that just kind of led into me feeling that there was something more to the gym. Not that I have anything against strength training. I just felt like something was kind of missing. I did my first, I think it was like a weekend Pilates workshop type of thing. And I was hooked. It was kind of like the thing that had been missing. It was the thing that brought it all together. Not that I wanted to get rid of strength training, but it just felt like there was a knowledge of something missing in that and how the body moved that just linked the two together perfectly for me. I had a Caymanian partner that helped me open up the studio. So that was 2003. A year later, it was Ivan.
Oh, so right.
There was a lot of, which kind of maybe leads into some of the things that happened, a lot of big life moments, a lot of maybe stressful life moments, starting a new business, going through a hurricane like that, and the stress that was involved with that. And then it was in 2005, we had traveled to the UK. I was I think I remember being tired, but then of course you're traveling across the pond and coming back. And I remember thinking, I must be getting my period because something felt like not sore, but just, I can't remember what it's like now, but kind of achy.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling, and I felt the lump and panicked immediately, as my mom had breast cancer when she was 35, and it had come back, and she passed away when she was 45. So I was now 35 myself. And panicked clearly. I went to my physician, my OBGYN here in Cayman, looked, he said, it looks like a fluid-filled cyst. I'm going to send you to get an ultrasound done. I waited anxiously for days and got the report back from him, or the news back from him, that it was not cancer. It was a fluid-filled cyst. So hugely relieved. Went in to see him, and I did push for more information. I did push for a second opinion. I did even push to get a biopsy done, considering my history. And I was told that it was not necessary and it would be very evasive and not to bother, that it was a fluid-filled cyst. And so I left it. And I was lucky enough to have a very close friend in Cayman who said, listen, you're going up the end of summer anyway. You should go see Dr. Ostrowski. You need to go see him just to get a second opinion. And I was like, no, it doesn't. It's fine. She goes, but why wouldn't you just go get a second opinion? And I did. And when I got there, he drove me to the clinic where he said they're going to do the mammogram and ultrasound for me.
The doctor drove you?
Yeah.
Wow.
This was in Canada?
This was in Miami, Dr. Ostrowski. Yeah.
Okay.
He drove me. I showed him the report that I had brought from Cayman. He looked at it. He set up the appointments for me. I now know why he drove me, because I was by myself. And I gave the form, the report to the technician who was taking me back. She goes, yeah, I just remember. She was like, honey, do you have stuff from Cayman with you? And I said, yep, here it is. And she looked at it and she said, oh, I thought it was a fluid-filled cyst. And I said, no, what it is. And she goes, no, this is a solid mass. And I'll never forget that moment, because it's like, I kind of think I knew. I think I always kind of knew, but if I hadn't have gone to get that second opinion, I would have just left it. So that is always my advice. But yeah, it was, and I was in and out of surgery the next day.
Were you?
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was 20 years ago.
That was 20 years ago.
And would you say that Cayman has come a long way since then?
I do. I was talking to a friend this morning. I said, when I was doing chemo in Cayman, I made that choice. I did radiation up in the States. I chose to do chemo here because why wouldn't you? It's you can go home, but I was very nervous. I hadn't had a lot of great things medically happen for me in Cayman at that point, and I was nervous that more things would go wrong. And I remember talking to a friend of mine at the time who was a nurse at the hospital, and she said, I know the nurses here. Meet with them. Tell them your concerns. And I did. I just said, I'm scared you guys are going to give me the wrong medication. I'm scared that something's going to go wrong and I'm going to die. Like I had lost all faith in the system here. So I do think it's come a long way. I mean, I was doing chemo in a side room that was part of the ICU. There was 2 like little Barker lounger chairs. Now there's a whole unit. Right. There's multiple hospitals. But I asked them if they would be okay always showing me the medication they were giving me before they gave it to me so I can make sure it had my name on it. And it seems silly, but I think it goes to that bigger picture of you have every right to ask that.
I was just going to say that. And I think that no matter where you are, Canada, the US, the UK, is if you feel that there is something in your gut that you do need another opinion or you should advocate for yourself, then you need to do that, no matter where it is that you're at. And to not be afraid to ask for what the medication says and if your name is on it. And
or whatever you need, like whether to whoever's listening, it might feel silly, but to you, if that little thing or big thing is going to make you put you at ease and make you feel comfortable going through the process, whatever it is, whether it's chemo or something else, then do it.
It happens a lot now too. I mean, one of the things that I was told early on was to always get copies of my reports because you can, of course you can. Yeah, right. And I had someone the other day even say something to me, not cancer related. And I said, go get the report.
Exactly.
She's like, I don't know. I'm like, it's your report. We pay through the nose for insurance here. You have every right to ask that and get it. And if anyone feels bad about making you get it or letting you get it or giving it to you, run. Because there should be no issue with that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
We're going to be talking about this on an upcoming episode, but we had an executive health check done at Health City in the Cayman Islands. And they sent us every report. We didn't have to ask for it. It was just emailed to us, which I thought was
well. And if you look at what happened with my report, I mean, when she said, well, it's a solid mass, I kind of looked at her and I think my heart kind of sank. I guess knowing my mom had it, I just always my whole life felt like this was probably going to be in my future somewhere. I don't know. What else was going to be? I was really healthy. Like what else was it going to be? And she showed it to me and it said a solid lobulated mass with a rich vascular supply. I'll never forget that. And
it said that on the report.
Yes.
That you brought to the US.
From Cayman.
Yeah, from Cayman. That was sent to my OBGYN. who was then reported back to me as being a fluid assist.
No.
So
okay.
If I had picked up that report myself and looked at it,
yeah.
I mean, look, there's a difference, but I can tell the difference between the words fluid and solid.
Yeah.
I would have gone, whoa, wait, hang on. This does not, none of this sounds, at the time, I didn't know what lobulated and vascular supply meant. I know now, bad. Like, it's all bad.
Yeah.
There was nothing about it that was good. And I remember she took me through and she goes, honey, it's going to be okay. It's like, and I was by myself. My husband wasn't with me because I was just going to go shopping after getting a second opinion. Right. And meanwhile, I didn't know, but Dr. Ostrowski had called my husband and a friend of mine, and they were already on the flight over. I didn't know that. And because he would have read the report too and known pretty decently that there was something not right. And when I went to get the biopsy, the doctor came in and he goes, I'm going to tell you, unfortunately, Mrs. Brummer, that this is going to be breast cancer. We will still do the biopsy to like double down on this. But anyone
who felt so confident
before the biopsy. He said anyone who told you didn't have a serious problem on your hands 2 months ago. I won't say what else he said, but like it was just, he was just like, this is not good. This is, we'll double check, but you will be having surgery. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah. I pushed through my surgery. I think in hindsight now, like Dr. Ostrowski, a lot of people in Cayman know him, but he was like this instigator, kind of cruise director of like getting things done in Miami. I mean, I was then picked up by him. No, sorry. I think he called me and he said, no, he came by because of course he knew. And he said, I'm going to bring you to Mercy Hospital. It's in Coral Gables. Your surgeon is going to be such and such. You're going to go meet with her now. When you finish with her, I want you to get in a cab and meet me at Doctor's Hospital back in Coral Gables. And I'm just going with it. And I remember meeting in her office. She goes, okay, so based on the ultrasounds I've seen, it looks like it's under, it's like one under a centimeter. So basically from what we're seeing, it looks like it's stage 1, but we won't know more until we get in there. So you have choices. It can be a lumpectomy or a mastectomy, and I can't tell you which one to choose. I'm just like,
and this, you just thought you were going for your second opinion.
Well, in my head, I should be at a mall with somebody to go, do you want a small or medium? Like, right. I don't understand. I asked her if there was someone else in my position with the same staging as you know it now, what do they normally do?
Yeah.
I think I phrased it like that. And she said they often choose lumpectomies. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. I don't know. I didn't give it a ton of thought. Honestly, I don't know why. I guess it just was
everything.
Honestly, it was like, get it out of me.
Yeah.
I don't even. And 20 years ago, a mastectomy is not the same thing as is now. Reconstruction has come a long way. Mm-hmm. It wasn't where it was 20 years ago, and there was a lot of larger issues with that. So I made the decision to have a lumpectomy because it seemed to make sense at the time, and the options, I think, for breast reconstruction post mastectomy were a little different 20 years ago than they are now. And there's obviously a risk involved with that. There's risk involved with that decision as well. But at the time, that's what I chose. So I was in surgery the next day. I was out that afternoon and went back to the hotel. And then my husband and my friend were there then. And I remember coming back out of the hotel and she's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, well, let's go shopping. I don't know why. That seemed like something I wanted to do. And we got to Daylin Mall. I went into the Banana Republic and lost it. I left, and I just remember there's a little playground there, and I was just sitting there and bawling. And my friend comes out and she's like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, it all happened so fast. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the enormity of just what that all was and what it all meant, it just like hit. It was a wild ride out there. Right. But yeah, that was my situation. Obviously everyone's quite different when it comes to that and how their surgeries go and what's involved. But yeah.
Okay. So then you were saying something a little bit earlier that you were navigating treatments in both countries.
Yes.
So what helped you stay grounded? So you were doing radiation in the U.S. and then you did chemo in Cayman?
In Cayman, yeah.
So what helped you stay grounded during that whole time?
I mean, I think obviously radiation at that time had to happen in Miami. There wasn't any option here for that.
Okay.
And I was just saying that the type of radiation I had was very new and very different to what was even happening in the US at that time. It was a newer way of avoiding the external radiation. And they would put a balloon, essentially, they put a catheter in with a balloon. They essentially but expanded like an expander inside the space left by my lumpectomy. And they sent in radioactive seeds into that space for about 2 or 3 minutes, pulled the seed out, Geiger-metered me to make sure I was leaving in one piece. And I did that twice a day for 7 days and I was done. So that was a logical choice and a very, very nice one in terms of time away. I had insurance that covered things, flights and hotels. That was very helpful. I probably would have felt quite comfortable doing chemo out there as well. I feel like there's moments though where you just have to look at your recovery and what you need it to look like. Being at home, being in your own space, being close to, obviously my husband would have been back and forth with me, but friends who help. Mm-hmm. And I think that part kind of overwhelmed any other maybe uncertainties I might have had about doing that type of procedure in Cayman. At that time, because I think, again, chemo there was not new, but it definitely wasn't where it is now. Mm-hmm. So navigating that, I didn't have to go back and forth a lot. I was up there. I had my surgery. We went up a week later, met with geneticists, talked about possibly retrieving eggs, which I didn't do in the end because it would have meant pumping hormones into my body. And I had just found out I had hormone positive cancer. So I wrote that off the table. We met with the radiologist. We met with everybody, made a plan, came back to Cayman, went back and started putting that plan into action. So there was a lot in Miami initially, but then November 2005 to February 2006, I was in Cayman doing chemo. There was every I think 3 weeks or so, I would fly back up to the States for a variety of things. My OBGYN was up there. The oncologist was up there. So there was some back and forth, but for the most part, my chemo was in Cayman, and that was nice, right?
And one of the things that you and I were talking about not too long ago when we were first discussing this is the chemo then put you into menopause?
Yes. So the chemotherapy basically kind of shuts down it shut down my ovaries. Mm-hmm. And with that and some of the other medication I started taking about halfway through, tamoxifen, other things that suppress, because you're trying to not let your body get estrogen, right? Because for me, because I was estrogen positive. And so that, and I don't know if anyone actually told me this was going to happen. I don't remember these conversations.
The menopause.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. I think everything is like I was saying to you, it's so wrapped up in, I was like, okay, well, all I knew is at day 17, I was going to lose all my hair. And that seemed to overwhelm everything. I will remember that moment so vividly. I had stopped literally brushing my hair in the hopes it wouldn't move. I didn't wash it in the hopes that it wouldn't fall out. And then I remember going for a run one day and I was like, oh, this is really, really gross. I'd cut it short, like very short. And I just went into the shower to wash my hair and it just all came out. So that felt so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I know it's a silly thing, but it is like the biggest part for me.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with nausea. And so if a hot flash starts working its way in, you're like, oh, well, like I have no hair. Like that seemed to be the overwhelming thing. I do remember being at Eduardo's So that was a while ago, wearing my wig, because I have no photos of me with my bald head, and I never went out in public with my bald head. Kudos to those who do, but I just didn't, that wasn't my thing. And just feeling this sweat on my face. And I'm like, I am not taking this wig off. I am not taking it. My husband was watching me. He's, what is going on? I'm just pouring sweat. I'm like, okay, hot flash. But that was overwhelmed by the fact, like, I'm not taking off this wig. And I just think that aspect of menopause for me was overshadowed by the stress of cancer and treatment. So that when 5 years later, because I always had to go up, the tamoxifen and the drugs you take after can cause growths on the uterine lining. So they're always checking. And they had seen something on my ovary. So 2 or so years after chemo finished, I had an oophorectomy. So I had one ovary removed, but still had the other one. And then 3 years after that, there was polyps on my uterine lining that were benign. But I remember my OBGYN at the time in Miami was like, he's like, I know you are going to worry and worry. He goes, now that we're seeing these growths, we will need you to come up more often. And he goes, so you could have a hysterectomy and that would be gone. And in my mind, I'm like, geez, I already did the hot flashes. So yeah, take it. I'm not using it. Just get rid of it. Right. Why would I need it? I didn't ask enough questions because that's where the fun really began. You had
felt that you had already gone through menopause.
I kind of did. I thought I was done. I thought, did the hot flash, kind of made my way through that. Look at me, rock star, did it. Took like 4 months and I'm done. But that was not it. Then, that was.
So that was just the drugs.
Yeah, it was kind of like
into this menopause state.
Yeah, it was like then you fake menopause.
Yeah, then you can come out of it.
Well, I think, from, if I could have, a lot of times people finish chemo and they might get their periods back. There's that aspect of it. I mean, by the time I got to my 5-year mark, I was 40.
Right.
By the time I had my hysterectomy, I was 40 because I had it about 5 years later. And I just thought, I'll just get that taken out. Like, I don't want it. I'm not using it. What would the harm be?
Yeah.
And at first it was great. I mean, I love my OBGYN. He's like this amazing surgeon. I had this great experience. He had done the first oophorectomy laparoscopically. He did the hysterectomy laparoscopically. So I felt like I just rocked it out. And then that was in like June of 2010. And by the end of the summer, I just felt really puffy. And we'd been on a cruise with my parents. And I remember my husband saying, well, we were on a cruise, like we weren't eating the whole time. I wasn't in the food line just eating. And I'm like, this is weird. But, we were on vacation and maybe, you weren't watching things as much. And I just kind of let it go. And then I started waking up in the middle of the night with like my hand like asleep. And when it first happened, like painful asleep, when it first happened, I thought, oh my goodness, this is lymphedema because I had one lymph node removed. And I was stressing out about that. And then the next night it was this arm. I'm like, well, that arm didn't have it. And then it was like both hands. And it went on for so long. I didn't sleep. It would be painful. I started Googling things in the middle of the night. I'm like, this kind of seems like carpal tunnel. Okay, let me get a bag of ice. I would put it on, or a bag of peas, put on my wrist and my hand would release. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is. But then I just couldn't think. I felt so stupid, just dumb. Like Colleen normally lived in this little space behind my right ear and the rest of my brain was just a mess. And I cried all the time. And there was any number of, was I crying because I was too tired? I was still working. I was running a business. I was still working 10, 12-hour days, which normally I just rocked through. But I just was incapable of anything. And still nobody was bringing up anything to do with the effects of a hysterectomy with me. Nothing.
How long after the hysterectomy did you start seeing the symptoms? Quickly?
Pretty quickly. I mean, once I started, I was probably well into, so it was in June, July. It was probably well into end of October, November when I was at my worst. I'm like, this has got to be from this hysterectomy because I thought I had done it, right? So I wasn't what was happening, what was going on. And I started researching it a bit more myself. And I was like, maybe I didn't go through this is it now. This is menopause. And I remember one of my doctors was visiting Cayman in early December, and I just was in tears. I was like, I cannot go on like this. And I remember he put his thumb on my shin and he pressed down and he goes, you are holding a lot of subcutaneous fluid. I'm like, yes, what is happening? And then he's like, no, we better test. We're going to test your lungs. We're going to test your kidneys. We're going to test your heart. I went through every test under the planet. And they're like, no, you're fine. I'm like, it's a hysterectomy. Like, how is no one even, it was just not even considered. Now, to be fair, of course you need to test everything considering my history. I'm not saying that was bad. But I do remember going up to see my OBGYN in Miami, and he said, listen, you can't take any kind of HRT because I had this cancer. He goes, but I do know that there are some studies that have shown like a low dose progesterone can make a huge difference, and that might be something you could consider. So when you speak with your oncologist next, talk to him about it. So I had done all my research, and this is what we had talked about the other day. I was up in Miami in January to see my oncologist. It was my birthday, and we had a big dinner planned that night. So I was in a pretty good mood, and I thought, this is going to be good answers. I'm going to get good answers today. This is the first step forward. And so we sat down, and I mentioned what was happening and the symptoms I was having and my struggles. And I know he was my oncologist, but when you have cancer, they are all up your business. What do you need? What can we give you? What can we help with pain? Like, there's so much help. So I just thought I would be more of the same. And he said, he goes, I don't know. And he just had his computer there, and he just Google searched the name of this product that I had been given. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. I think it only comes in a tablet. So I don't know if that's going to work. I'm like, oh, okay. Thinking he might have some other ideas, but no, that was it. And, he said, otherwise everything looks good. I'm like, okay. And my husband didn't hear this because he didn't understand why I was crying when we were leaving, because I think he was gathering my stuff. But as I was walking to get up, the oncologist said to me, Colleen, if you just, maybe just try a low carb diet because you are looking a little chunky. And I just cried the whole way. But I think that's a defining moment, right? Because that's when I thought, well, this is it. This has to be my thing I do, because I'm not going to get help from this person. Right. And that's the last time I saw him, because it was so, and maybe I was barking up the wrong tree, but he would have been the one to have any discussion with me about any kind of hormone I could have taken, knowing my cancer, knowing what I was dealing with. And if there wasn't an option, and if it wasn't okay, just say, hey, listen, hormone therapy is not going to work for you, and this is why. But let's look at some other things. Have you looked into acupuncture? Have you looked into adjunct therapies? Have you talked to a nutrition? Have you done any of these things? Would have been better than what he said to me.
Yeah. Right. That's crazy.
Yeah. It was not a good moment. No. But it was a moment where I decided, okay, well,
exactly,
I'm not going to get help from this person. So I talked to Andrea Hill, my friend, who's a nutritionist. I talked to lots of people, and I started understanding that, okay, it's okay. This is, I am going through menopause. So these are normal. I did see doctors. I was prescribed some antidepressants. I didn't, and I'm not against anyone taking them. I just thought, well, but I'm not depressed. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not against someone taking them, but it felt not right for me. I felt like I needed to explore these other things. And I think too, when you have had so much medicine put in your body, so many drugs, it's like, I'm not comfortable putting another drug in until I can figure out what is actually going on here.
Right. And on top of going down all of those routes, did you start picking up the Pilates more for yourself?
Pilates was always something that I obviously loved, which is why I opened the studio. And then it becomes work, and it's your job. And I think my job has always been helping other people whether it's Pilates or whatever it was, teaching, whatever. And once I'd completed treatments, particularly after having any kind of laparoscopic surgery, I remember saying to my surgeon that when he brought me up there, he said, okay, just remember, you're not going to be able to do anything for 6 weeks. And I was like, wait, you never said that. And to have to stop something for 6 weeks and then start to wake those muscles up again, that gives you a deeper appreciation for what I might not have any kids, but I do know what it's like when that area gets beat up to an extent, right? So there was an empathy that was kind of a little different for me from that perspective. Pilates was always a job, but then it became a way that I found my body could move really nicely and safely, but giving me a lot of bang for my buck in terms of being very connected to the movement, and I needed to being aware of what's happening in the middle of my body and moving from there. So it definitely took on a slightly different meaning, I think, for me during that period of time.
And were you teaching at that time too? Or?
Well, I just opened my business. I didn't feel like I had a ton of options. I probably could have stopped. I could have maybe stopped working. I don't remember all the details. It seems so long ago now. It wasn't a financial thing per se. I know that I was the only one. It was just me and 1,000 square feet. I was just me. And I did cancel classes that I'd been running because I just didn't feel I could be consistent with that. But I did go to all my clients at the time and I said, look, I do not know what the next 4 months will be like. So I am happy to continue. If you're happy to just give me grace in times when I might need to cancel last minute, everyone was fine with that. So I did work all the way through. I had chemo every Friday. No, sorry. I would have chemo on a Friday. After the first weekend when the first time I decided to take no anti-nausea drugs, I was like going to do it drug-free. That was a mistake. That was a lot of throwing up with me by the end of the first day on the bathroom floor saying to my husband, I don't want to do chemo anymore. And he's like, I don't think that's an option because it's in. Then I got a handle with the pharmacist on things that could help me. I would sleep a lot and I would be back at work on Monday. And then I would have chemo again 2 weeks later. So I was having it every 2 weeks for 8 treatments. And I worked for a large part of it. For the most part, I'm glad I did because you need something. You can't be in your head that much. Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're going through the cancer diagnosis and the healing journey that had brought you a deeper connection with your body?
Yes, I mean, definitely. Like I mentioned, you go through surgeries and treatments and you really get a pretty good idea of what it's like to be, I'm going to say at your lowest. That might not be the right way of putting it. As a teacher, I was very used to giving. I wasn't used to taking.
Right.
It felt like a very weird space for me. And I learned that I had what it was like to conserve energy. You need to, it was difficult at the beginning. And then sometimes it'd be like, it's okay that I just don't call anybody back because I don't have the bandwidth for it. And this is what I'm going to do. That was very different for me because I am a yes person. Do you need me to do that? Sure. Like that felt very alien to me. And it's the first thing I often get people asking me, I've got someone going through cancer. What would really help them? And I said, well, never tell them everything's going to be okay. I hated it when people said that to me because you don't know.
Yeah.
How do you know? You can't know everything's going to be okay. That seemed, I know where it's coming from, but it doesn't help because it feels like a lie because you can't know.
No, right.
And for me, it got me even more anxious. So when somebody was just dropped something off at my door or just sent me a little note or a text saying, thinking about you, just let me know if you need anything. My husband had a work trip one weekend when I was doing chemo and I'd been through one already. So I was like, no, you go, it's fine. And I remember waking up one night because I would sleep a lot. Once you got the drugs right, they're very good. I had really good sleeps, had the best sleeps of my life. And I woke up and I had one girlfriend sleeping on one side of me and one on the other. And like, that's what you needed. I didn't need anyone to tell me things were going to go one way or the other because you can't know. And I feel like that has helped a lot when I see other people going through it too. It's letting people know it's okay to be a taker. And I don't know, even for us, well, I don't have kids, but if you have kids, you're just used to doing for other people. To step back and have it be okay that you don't need to, and give yourself that space to do that. That's tough.
Yeah.
I thought it was tough.
Yeah.
I think it would be tough too.
Right?
Yeah. But being okay with knowing that you're disappointing people, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And you get to a point where like, oh God, it really doesn't matter, does it? Like, I'm going through chemo. Everybody just like, I just need to get to the other side of this thing, and I will just do whatever is best for me to do it. And sometimes some friends were great with that, and sometimes some friends weren't. And I maybe had a few friendships that maybe fizzled a little bit. I didn't maybe have enough to give to it, but you had to focus on yourself. I don't do that. When I finished chemo, I was in a zone. I was like, that's it. It's all about me. I'm going to always take care of, boy, I forgot about that real fast. Yeah. The other day, because in prepping for this, I was thinking of something. I have to do this. I don't have time to go for a walk or whatever it was. I'm like, boy, what happened to that? You know, because you finish an experience like that and you're like, I'm never going to get back to that level where I'm too busy to do this or too busy to do that, because it's not important. And you can forget that very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yeah. Just slip back into your old habits.
Slip back into my old habits. Yeah. Really quick.
Yeah, I could see that. So you kind of alluded to this, but tell us a bit more about Pilates for Pink.
Well, Pilates for Pink started, I think I had seen it, in a magazine somewhere. I can't remember what magazine it was. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. I finished my treatments at the end of February. I guess it would have been 2006. And I had seen this in a magazine, and obviously October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I was kind of looking for something where I could celebrate what I'd been through, help others in the community, and then do it with something that I feel that really brought me strength back, like got me kind of back in the game. The thing that I felt really strong doing, whereas I might have felt weak before, this then made me feel strong. And this just felt like a really nice way to combine all those things together. So I think I reached out to them and maybe asked them if I could use the logo. I can remember they said yes, and they gave me the JPEG. So I don't remember, I think it was self-made. I can't even remember what it was now. And so I started it, and it was at my old studio in Marcos Cannon Place. And I think there was I think I did like 4 classes that had 8 people in each one, because I had to just kind of run them because it was a small space.
Right.
And that was it. That was the first Pilates for Pink. And it was fun. And then I thought, okay, well, let's try that again. And then I think the next year was at the Hyatt, which is not the Hyatt anymore. So Palm Heights.
Yeah.
There was a little room by the little boardroom or something by the gym down to the side now, crossing the pool. And we had 2 classes in there, but I could get more people in. And then it just kind of expanded. I think by the time I got to 2010, the year I had my hysterectomy, it was a really obviously tough time for me that October. I think I was then at the location in Cricket Square. I think I again had like 2 or 3 classes just in that room. And then we started moving over to the ARC at Cayman International School, and then started getting a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger. So now we're going into year 19.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does it work? What exactly is it?
So basically, it started off actually because I've always raised the money for the Cayman Islands Cancer Society. And at the time, I believe they were working at that time raising money to build the new chemo unit. So the funds that we were raising were going directly to the Cancer Society for that purpose. And then as the time went on, what I realized is, yes, it's Pilates for Pink. It's pink because it's my experience with breast cancer, and it's October, and that's how it kind of started. But really, the work that the Cayman Islands Cancer Society does is for all cancer patients.
Yeah.
And really, cancer is cancer.
Yeah.
Like that's the breast cancer is my experience, hence the pink in the name of the event and when we hold it. But pretty much from, about 2010 onward, all of the funds raised went to the to CICS to help provide financial support to all cancer patients and their families. And that is something we have promoted ever since. So a lot of people come to the event because, yes, they've had a personal experience with a family member with breast cancer. But I mean, cancer has touched all our lives in so many different ways. And does it matter what kind it is? I mean, the work that they do for financial assistance is so important. And so that's where we've been allocating all the funds since that time. So I think we've gone from, I mean, I don't know what I charged for that first year. I think we raised maybe $3,000. And last year we were $18,000 from one event. So it has gotten
That's awesome.
a lot bigger, but that's kind of that was the reason it started. And now it's like I said, it's happening in October, but the larger purpose is to provide assistance financially through the Cancer Society. But the larger feeling that I always try to make sure happens at that event is you've got a community of people doing something that is movement-based or wellness-based, and we're all there to support. And that is something that, I mean, we can heal physically in the ways we do, emotionally, mentally, from any kind of treatment. Everyone's path that way is a little different. And I was thinking about this a lot as we were getting ready for it. We've made it through COVID. We've made it through all of these kind of things. You can work through that yourself, and that's an important part of it. But without the community aspect, it just doesn't, it just falls short. I have an amazing husband. I have an amazing group of friends, and I have a spectacular family. That was my huge support system, but not everybody has that. So that community aspect is even more important.
Yeah. And there is, like you have spoken a bit about how the loneliness can come with the treatment, and also through the menopause journey. Like it can feel kind of lonely and isolating.
I call them the dark days. I did not like that time. I think it can be less lonely now because more people are talking about it. Yeah. Like I said, like I was so convinced that I've been through it. I didn't really realize what was happening. It made sense. I had a hysterectomy. I was going through menopause, but I didn't fully comprehend all that meant. Yeah. And it did feel very lonely. And I remember seeing Dr. Yin at the time, and every time I was in, I was crying. Every single time I was crying. All the time. So much crying. I don't even know why. Like anything, I'd be watching like a Folgers coffee commercial and I would lose the plot. Yeah. I mean, to this day, it comes pretty quick, but those coffee commercials, right? With that guy coming home from the war, right? Oh my goodness. And it would just be all these tears, always so many tears, and not sadness. Because I never felt, I don't know, it wasn't sad. It was just so emotional. Yeah. Those guys coming home from the war. Emotions, all the emotions.
I do it. I feel like it hits me a lot when it's animals.
Oh,
like I'm like,
no,
the dog and finding a forever home, and I just lose.
There's a Sarah McLachlan song that
I could not.
No, that's a bad
mute it. Yeah. You have to mute it.
No, it was so many emotions, and so it did feel, and then people would say things like, I think my husband said it to me once, and then he never said it again. It was like just the hormone thing. I'm like, the hormones. It's just your hormones, but there's more wrapped up. Your skin gets dry. Everything gets dry. There's just so much happening and no discussion about it. And like I said, it was a one time. I feel like I somewhat failed myself as well. I just didn't ask questions. I'd asked I'd read so many books about breast cancer, a ridiculous amount of books about breast cancer. But not this.
Well, and who would you have, at that time, that many years ago, who would you have even...
I don't know. I mean, I guess I honestly thought, I think at the heart of it, I thought I'd been through it and done it. So take it out. I don't need it.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to you that there could be something after that.
Such a big flux of symptoms after the fact.
And I can imagine with your experience with that oncologist of just telling you to go on a low-carb diet, after that, you probably didn't want to ask it. You probably didn't even want to say anything to anyone for fear of another comment.
This was the guy who'd been kind of directing my treatment with such a big cancer, right? Like it was so big.
Right.
This, I always say, I mean, look, I hope I don't have to ever again, and I feel for anyone who does, chemo's not fun. I was 35 when I did it. I feel like I kind of rocked it out. It's not an easy thing though, right? Like it takes everything from you. You're just shedding. You're just wiping a slate clean, and it's tough. My hair grew back really curly. I mean, I'd blow dry the heck out of it now, but they were waiting for it to grow back. Oh my goodness, I cried. Like the tears I cried, now that I know there's hormones involved, but the tears I would cry as well. Always in Miami, those ladies in Miami have the most beautiful long hair. I can't tell you how many times I would cry in mall parking lots. We'd leave and I would just be in tears. I made my husband drive to, I don't know where in Florida, I don't even know where it was now, to this wig shop. Got this wig that I thought I looked amazing in. I swear this woman had weird lighting in that place. And my husband kept saying, "Are you sure you like it?" I'm like, "Yes, it looks just like my hair used to look. You don't think so?" And he's like, "Yeah, it looks great." I'm like, "I felt so great." And I wore it and we got it to the mall. And I remember it was at Aventura and there was a mirror there and I saw myself. I ran into the bathroom and started crying. He had to follow me into the women's bathroom. And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "What did you tell me? I look so horrible." It was like gray blonde. I looked like a golden girl. It was so awful. But this is where all my emotions were as I was going through this hot flashing. Everything else seemed to be so overwhelming. I just thought, this is all menopause. I'm crying about my hair. I'm crying that I'm having hot flashes. So when the second part came, I didn't really know what that was. Mm-hmm. It was menopause. I just didn't know. And it did feel like there was always someone to help me. Get a new wig. What are you going to do? Do this, do this, do this. But when it came to that part,
like the emotional...
lonely. It just didn't seem like there was help or support.
Right.
And people, I think, still don't talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are, but people
We're working on it.
I have lots of clients who are going in through early menopause. That's happening sooner. And, autoimmune things that are coming from that, lots of issues that they're dealing with and not sleeping and having to function. And it's rough and it's lonely.
Yeah, I think so
too. And I think it's really great that you came on and told us your story. I didn't know your story at all. Like I knew about the Pilates.
And the cancer is the big one, right?
Yes.
Women don't talk about the other stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I should say that. I knew about the cancer, but I didn't know about like the much deeper things. And how would you as well, right? Unless there was...
Yeah, it is something that is quite quiet. And I guess, to an extent, it does feel like you are going through something that is changing your... womanhood sounds like a really weird way of it, but it does feel very deep and personal. So I don't know that it's something everybody's confident sharing, because it has changed lots of things that are happening in your body.
Right.
And that does sometimes feel like things you want to keep quiet and just deal with. But
we're thankful that you're sharing it today.
But you don't have to. That's the thing.
Right.
We're pretty much near the end, right? Yeah. Is there anything we want to end on? Like we could sort of, if we could, like now being on the other side of it, any advice you could give somebody maybe going through breast cancer, menopause, hysterectomies, all the things.
I think that the one thing I will say, and I tried doing, I tried talking to a lot of different people when I first started. I even tried the chat rooms. It wasn't for me. I'm not saying it's not for everybody. It wasn't for me. I felt like it brought me down to a much lower place. I think sometimes...
It's a lot of doom and gloom on them?
Yeah. For me, that's what it felt like. So I struggled with that. I was like, no, this isn't giving me the feel-good stuff that I need. So I didn't do that. I think you really have to find your own path. I think one of the things, like I said, I bought a lot of books, and I was going through them. And I remember talking to one of the doctors or one of the nurses when I was in Miami, and I said, well, what about this? What about this? I read about this, because it was like my form of Google at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, 20 years ago, we weren't on it as often as we are now. And she said, honey, you really need to look at the copyright dates on those books. And that's one thing I'll always suggest people read, look when this is, because everything
changes so much. Yeah.
So, the radiation I had wasn't in any of the books I had looked at.
Right.
And information on the drugs and the medication is changing all the time. I always struggled a lot, obviously, getting at my mom's age. Turning 45 and getting past that was a big thing for me because she didn't make it. Chemo hasn't changed a lot. I remember the nurse telling me this, but what's changed is our early detection and how, I was getting chemo every 2 weeks because there was a drug they could give me that could keep my white blood count up. Whereas my mom didn't have that. They had to wait until she built up that immunity again before she could hit another treatment. So there's a lot of things that have changed and continue to change. So as a piece of advice, I would say just, you need to ask questions about and everyone's cancer is so different. Is it ductal? Is it not? It is so different. How old are you? You're going to have what I went through with my type of cancer. A woman at 50 or 56 might not have the same thing. They'd probably be like, listen, if you get a mastectomy, no radiation, no chemo, potentially. So there's so many different things. You can't go by, well, that person had that experience, so this is what mine will be.
Right.
That would be my first advice. Definitely research. Watch out for Google. It's a slippery slope. Get a second opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that. To be fair, that's always my first one. Someone says, I have just been told I have breast cancer. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Any help you need, can I please tell you to get a second opinion? I'm not a doctor.
And it's not because you're saying the first one is wrong. No. It's just verifying and validating.
For sure.
I've seen it go wrong too many times.
Yeah.
To me, and unnecessarily.
Yeah. And even in your case where they say it's nothing, it's just a lump, it's a cyst, don't worry about it.
And people make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing. Like, everybody's going to make a mistake. It doesn't mean that we're all human.
Yeah.
So people can do something and wrong or read something wrong. It happens. So why wouldn't you just get a second opinion just to double check?
Yeah.
They might come back and say the exact same thing and you're like, okay.
Yeah, great.
Fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Good advice. Thank you so much for coming today. It was really nice to have you and to learn more about you and your journey.
Yeah.
How can our listeners follow your journey, follow up with you, and more importantly, Pink for Pilates for Pink.
Pink for Pilates for Pink. I mean, all the information about the event will be coming up starting about mid-July, including our save the date and that type of thing. So that's just on our Energy Pilates Cayman social sites. So that would probably be the easiest way.
Yep.
Anytime anyone wants to reach out or find me at the studio, I'm pretty much there all the time. And so that's just info@energycayman.com, or if anyone has any questions, I'm always willing to help, always under the guise of I can give my experience. And as I said, everyone's is so different. But sometimes people just need to see someone who's gotten to the other side in some way or form. And I think sometimes that's helpful as well.
Yeah, I do too.
To talk to someone, either to me or the Cancer Society has amazing people there as well. Breast Cancer Foundation has amazing people as well. I think there's a lot of options on this island now for getting that support.
Yeah.
Just why do it alone?
Exactly.
We'll make sure that we put it on there as well. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on Breast Intentions. We hope you felt seen, supported, and maybe had a few laughs along the way. Don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review us. Your support keeps the conversation alive. Follow us on social media for more insights, behind-the-scenes fun, and updates on future episodes. Got a topic you want us to dive into? We'd love to hear from you. Remember, life's too short for bad bras, toxic relationships, and kale you don't actually like. So until next time, stay bold and keep your breast intentions exactly where they belong, front and center. Now go crush midlife, or at least today's to-do list. Cheers!